a conflict which is not yet coming to an end. There's not been ceasefires. Sometimes that happens after a couple days, but this is something I think unique because we're seeing the Middle East, unfortunately, on fire.
What we're witnessing is Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, all of the U.S. enemies and Israel's enemies are coordinating their actions, and that is a grave thing.
I saw reporting this morning that the head of the IRGC, the Iranian external terror organization, was in Lebanon meeting with Hezbollah. If that's true, that would suggest also that this is a coordinated effort, and we need to hold them accountable. We need to make sure that the American leaders aren't just softly supporting what Israel is doing, but making unambiguously clear that the United States fully defends Israel's right to defend itself, and we will continue to support our friend and ally that is defending this important place, the undivided city of Jerusalem.
Hamas and all the terrorist activities emanating from Gaza are backed by Iran, and they said it. Our resources, our blood, our spirit, our money, our rockets, our missiles, our ordnance, everything is coming out of Iran. And what is the United States doing? The United States has the temerity, the audacity through the Biden administration to be sitting in Vienna, as you pointed out, negotiating what they're going to do and hand over some more money like Obama did to the Iranians, who will then turn it over to the terrorists, who will then bomb as they are doing and attack the Israelis.
What needs to be done, and how do we stand with Israel clearly to make this not again just about talking about two sides and hopefully that the conflict comes to an end, but taking sides. Taking the right side as well.
This is a very strong showing from Senate Republicans just a couple of days after this conflict started to have 44 senators sign a letter to the president of this magnitude. And look, there's a lot of things in the letter, Jordan, but I think this one line sums up where these senators are. And it says to the president, it says, "We call on you to immediately end negotiations with Iran." So, Jordan, they are not asking for some statement of support for Israel, something as simple as that. They want for the negotiations with Iran to stop.
This is the exact same mistake that the Obama administration made. They said they're going to separate out the nuclear ambitions of Iran from the terrorist activities of Iran and just pretend those terrorist activities aren't happening and say we just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. The problem with that is, obviously, we need to put sanctions and pressure on Iran. We need to continue to be able to limit their access to dollars because they use those dollars to fund Hamas and Hezbollah. And to just ignore that and to just say, well, we're going to give them relief from sanctions again just because they're participating in nuclear talks doesn't help us solve the issue that's in Israel, and it doesn't slow down the rocket attacks coming into Israel.
There was a time period where this was much more difficult for Hamas to pull off for about 5-6 years. It seemed like they just didn't have the capabilities, they didn't have the resources. And do you think that was directly because the Iranians were being cut off from the economy of the world?
We know that the maximum pressure campaign that we put on Iran denied their proxies resources. We saw that they were able to pay Hezbollah soldiers less money, but just there was less money to go around to go foment terror. And so I absolutely believe the Iranians and the Hamas terrorists believe they're going to be flush with cash, that the Americans are going to let off the maximum pressure campaign. And so attack of this scale now, I understand over 1,500 rockets launched, would have been much more difficult for them to afford or pull off or keep rockets in reserve just now 120 days ago.
The Democrat Party, his party, is now, as you said, it's fully divided on this issue. There's a loud anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian voice. And pro-Palestinian voice, it's not like you said about the people so much as it is about these political movements and terrorist movements.
Liberal offices in the House and the Senate are getting bombarded with calls from activist liberals across the country saying Israel is the aggressor. We should do sanctions on Israel. We should cut off any funds or aid to Israel. We should support the Palestinian leadership. I mean, that's what's coming from the left right now. So a counterbalance on that would be very important for people to be able to hear. We need to be able to stand with Israel. Israel is not the aggressor. Israel has the right to be able to protect their own sovereignty. And the Palestinian people have the right to be able to one day not live under the thumb of these terrorist leaders.
It just seems like there is a vacuum here, and the vacuum is the United States government led by our president, Joe Biden, who is just, because of inter-party warfare on support of Israel, it's just kind of been a little bit, again, like that, the vacuum needs to be filled.
Vast majority of the American people support Israel. That spills over into congressional support. But here's what I'd say, Jordan. There's a way to back up that professed support with action. You heard Secretary Pompeo talk about the maximum pressure campaign. There's a bill called the Maximum Pressure Act that would put the maximum pressure campaign back on. I'd love to see senators and congressmen supporting that bill.
We talk about now more than ever. This is when Israel needs the U.S., and they need the support, and they want to know the support is coming from the American people as well.